The Gospel of Mark, known for its straightforward narrative and vivid imagery, presents us with a powerful encounter between Jesus and the Syrophoenician woman. The story is filled with dramatic tension and unexpected twists. It invites us to explore the themes of faith, persistence, and the transformative power of God's love. The narrative unfolds in Gentile territory, where Jesus seeks solitude and rest. However, a desperate mother, driven by the love she has for her daughter, interrupts his solitude. Despite Jesus' initial reluctance, her persistence highlights the power of faith and the unwavering love of a parent. Now, some of you may have gone ahead and just put yourself in that shoes, the shoes of that woman, shoes of a parent. Would you have done the same? Jesus' initial response to the woman is harsh and dismissive, using a derogatory term to describe her people. This language, while jarring to modern readers, reflects the cultural and social attitudes of the time. Acknowledging the historical context and avoiding justifying or condoning such language is crucial. In today's world, we see how people ridicule our vice president, our former First Lady, Michelle Obama, using degrading names, using harmful language, derogatory words that are just plain hurtful. Society's tendency to generalize and stereotype Latinos as bad hombres or criminals is another example of derogatory language that reflects negative cultural and social attitudes. It's paramount to actively challenge and work towards eradicating such harmful language and attitudes. However, it is also necessary that Jesus' words are not meant to be taken literally. The metaphor of dogs is likely a hyperbolic expression used to emphasize the cultural and social barriers that the woman faced. It reminds us of the prejudice and discrimination that existed in ancient society and still exists. Despite Jesus' initial rejection, the woman persists in her plea. She responds to his harsh words with humility and faith, acknowledging her status as a Gentile and expressing her belief in his power to heal her daughter. Her faith is a powerful example for us today. It reminds us that we must persevere in our prayers and trust in God's goodness, even in the face of rejection and adversity. The story of Jesus' encounter with a woman and the man's healing in the Gospel of Mark reminds us that even in modern society, the life of faith is not homogeneous. Every journey is distinct. It may sometimes look and feel unfair, unbalanced, or even unjust. Just as Jesus initially responded to the woman with seemingly harsh words before acknowledging her faith and healing her daughter, the variations in how individuals experience their faith journeys can appear unequal. And some of you here today may have felt that already in your life. Maybe feeling it today. It's essential to remember that God works in mysterious ways, and our understanding of fairness may not align with divine intentions. Each person's journey of faith is unique, and we must embrace the diversity and experiences within our spiritual communities and offer support and understanding to those whose paths seem different from our own. You've heard me say it before. Christ Church UCC is a purple congregation, and it's not just because your pastor's favorite color is purple. Purple theologically and politically. That is what a church community should be. Not everybody will think exactly the same, and that's okay. The important part is when we come to the table, we are respectful of each other. We talk to each other in a professional, loving manner. Because I've told you before, even if Bob says every single sermon is his favorite, Judy may disagree. And that's okay. There might be a Sunday where I tune them out after the first sentence. That's okay too. Because then maybe the following Sunday you're like, I really like what he said today. And I will remind you that sometimes what comes out of my mouth is not for you, it's for me. Because sometimes even as pastors, we need those reminders. See, Jesus, moved by the woman's faith, performs a miraculous healing. He acknowledges her persistence and rewards her faith with a miracle. This compassion demonstrates the power of God's love to break down barriers and heal even the most difficult situations. Why is it that I, as your pastor and teacher, continue to push us into being more visible, not just by giving of food or giving of money, but in action in our community, especially when it comes to providing food for our community? We need to be part of the solution. And there's a big stigma over those who do not have enough food. And it is our responsibility to share that with the younger generations and say, there should not be a stigma. We should not look down upon someone that doesn't have enough. Because if you were in those shoes, you still want to be treated with dignity. You still want to be humanized. Those are important things. See, the woman could have responded in a different way and could have responded what the social term today is, which is totally contrary to someone with the same name in this congregation, which is a Karen. You've heard of it, right? She didn't go into that and say, I want to speak to your manager, which would be God. What did she do? She kept her calm. Why? It was more important for her to be heard and get help for her daughter than it was to create a scene. See, when Jacob and I first heard that term Karen, we had already met Karen. And we're like, don't see it. So when we hear that, we're kind of chuckle because we know, and if you've gotten to know Karen, she's not that type that is portrayed out there. I don't know, maybe she is. Debbie says she is. See, but it's our job. We have young people among us. We have to serve as role models. And I've told you, I don't care if you're 100, or 50. We still have time. We still have the ability to do something. We still are able to keep the ministry alive in this church. And that doesn't mean you go in and say, hi, Alice, I'm going to talk to you about Jesus today. Okay. Because I've shared before, what would most likely happen? Don't want to hear me. I don't have time for you. Instead of saying, hey, Alice, I'm here. What do you need of me? Can I help you in some way? See the difference? As a Christian, you're still doing your part, right? You're still loving, you're still helping your neighbor. And yes, we are called to evangelize as well. But there's certain times where you bring it up, and certain times where you live it. See, the story of the woman found in today's reading illustrates the universal nature of God's love and compassion. It emphasizes that no cultural or social boundary can confine or limit the reach of God's love. The narrative is a powerful example that God's love transcends human-made divisions and extends unconditionally to all individuals, irrespective of their cultural background, social status, or personal circumstances. It embraces a mindset of inclusivity and equality, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. See, in the last 3+ years that I've been here, when I've met people, even in Des Plaines, they often think that I lead a Latino congregation. And I'm like, no. My congregation is of German ancestry, probably 90%, 95% of them. And they're like, oh. I was like, yeah, I speak English during my church services. Which is why my Spanish is becoming pretty rough. See, but with that, sometimes when I say that I have a predominantly white congregation or European American congregation, goes the unfortunate label that has now gone with our political system to a predominantly European American congregation. And that's a negative view. And as your pastor, I've gotten a little protective of when it comes to you. I don't care if it's a colleague assuming that you fit that stereotype. I make sure they know that you do not. In fact, you've been progressive for several decades. As I've said before, you hired a female pastor when it was not popular, and it still isn't quite popular. Think about that. Maybe you didn't think anything about it at the time, but you made progress. You had a gay Filipino associate pastor briefly here. Progress. You obviously don't have a German ancestry type of pastor in front of you today. More progress. See, you are doing your part. And sometimes even you need that reminder that you've done some of this work. Even when you weren't thinking about it, you were doing it. So I want you to remind yourself of the progress that you as a church community have made. That's why our doors are still open. Think about it. Yes, you've shrunk. I get that, and I hear the stories. Well, back in so-and-so, we used to have 300 people. We used to have so many services, and I get that. Those stories live with you. But today, we are still alive. We are still thriving. Look around you today. Look at how many people are in here today. Think about that. Think about how you greet visitors. That makes a difference. See, in our own lives, we may be called to advocate for those who are marginalized or oppressed. Whether it is speaking out against injustice, supporting charitable causes, or simply listening to the needs of others. Our advocacy can make a difference in the world. This is not just food. They're not just boxes. They are going to make a big difference in the lives of those kiddos who receive it and take it home. It acknowledges that they are alive, they are firm, and they too matter. That's what you're doing. It's not just, oh, well, let me just take this. Look at how much you brought to there. Think about that. And that's just a fraction of what you typically bring anyways. But you're helping. The story of the woman today powerfully reminds us of the transforming power of faith, the important persistence in God's boundless love. It challenges us to go beyond the literal and seek the deeper meaning of Jesus' words. Our call to action reminds us that change begins with just one person. When we are inspired by the unwavering faith and commitment of the woman in the story, we are empowered to challenge societal norms and speak up for those who are marginalized. Each individual has the power to make a difference by embodying these values and having faith in the transformative power of God's love. We can initiate positive change in our lives and the lives of others. We should never underestimate the impact of our actions, as change truly starts with just one person taking a stand. Amen.